Hi, this is Nathan Morris, strength and conditioning coach at the Pirates Performance Center in Greenside, and you're watching Joburg Today.
One day, you or your loved one may find themselves in need of an organ transplant. But the question is, are there enough organ donors in South Africa to save lives? I speak to Stella de Kock to find out more.
The situation in South Africa, even before COVID, we had a very low rate of organ and tissue donation. For instance, in countries like Spain, their rate was 40 per million per population for deceased donors. South Africa only has a rate of 3 per million per population. So that just shows you about how low our rate of organ donation is. And even with COVID now, with the pandemic, it just increased, the lower rate of donation.
But why is this the case?
The case is education. So people need to have the conversation with their family to tell them that they are an organ donor or tissue donor one day. And also the referral rate from hospitals. So the medical personnel need to phone a transplant coordinator when there's a potential donor. And due to COVID, the hospitals are overwhelmed, and it's the last thing that medical personnel are thinking about. So that's the two major factors that has an influence on our rate of transplants. And also in South Africa, we've only got 30 transplant coordinators that need to service the public and private sector. Where, for instance, in a country like Spain, they've got a transplant coordinator for every ICU, where they can do education and educate the medical personnel about the importance of organ and tissue donation.
That's a very small group when you consider the population of South Africa.
That's very true, yes. So you can imagine not all hospitals does have a transplant unit. There's only in the major sectors in South Africa, for instance, Pretoria, Joburg, Bloemfontein, Cape Town, Durban, and they need to service the whole population. So it's a small number of actual units.
Now, do we have figures for the number of current donors on the list?
The organ donor list is not available for the medical personnel. So again, in South Africa, it works that way that even if you're a registered organ donor, it doesn't mean consent. Your family will need to give consent for the process to start.
So there's a lot of security issues around this.
Yes, and also that people think if they're a registered organ donor and that's one of the myths, that they think when a paramedic see that you are an organ donor, they're not going to try and save your life, which isn't true. That paramedic and that medical doctor only want to save your life. They don't have anything to do with the transplant team. It's totally separate. So once you are identified as a potential donor, only then would they contact the transplant coordinator to come and speak to your family, and your family will need to give consent.
Now, what are some of the myths that need to be debunked around organ donation?
So a lot of people think it's against their religion, which most religions are for organ donation because it means you're saving someone else's life. And another thing is that you are treated with this is a fact, that you are treated with the utmost respect. You can still have an open casket. You would look exactly the same regardless if you had, donated your organs or not. So, and it's a medical procedure when they retrieve the organs. So that's just some of the myths that is available, that people think.
With the low number of organ donors out there, how does this then impact the recipient list and the people who are actually on the list?
So for instance, myself, I've been on the list since 2012 for a kidney, and they said on average it would be 8 years waiting period. Now, due to COVID, that time period has gone up from 12 to 15 years. So that's a direct impact. Also, because of once a patient has been transplanted, they are on immune suppressant. So that means the immune system is almost non-existent. So that then opens them up for opportunistic infections. So that also has a major impact. So it's again that lower transplant rates, and so it's people are waiting longer for organs, and people die while they're on the waiting list.
So Stella, what becomes the solution to the problem?
Education. So it's very important that people have the conversation with their family, speak to your community, and if you have doubts, do proper research. And it's again, there's a lot of fake news out there, so make sure that you can tell us directly. We will, answer your questions. If we can't answer your questions, we will put you in contact with, credible sources. And also, that's for the public. For the medical personnel, we need to educate them as well on the benefit of organ donation. You can save up to 8 lives if you donate your organs, and improve the lives of up to 50 people if you donate tissue. For instance, a 70-year-old can give to a 60-year-old. So there's no cut-off date, and even people with chronic diseases can be deceased donors.